Okay. So right, as I was saying, teaming. So this hour is what does it mean to work as a team, really? And I have to give many thanks to Lynn Vincent, who's done this for us in the past, for inspiration for what we're going to do today. But before we get there, now is an appropriate time for us to introduce all of ourselves. So let's just go around the room, starting with Satya. Just introduce yourself, where you're from, and one or two sentences of why you're here.
Satya, I work at PARADIM, take care of the research activities. PARADIM is a big bank here at Johns Hopkins. It's a control facility. So
Hi everyone, I am Myra Amjad. I am doing my PhD in chemical engineering from Clarkson University in Boston. So I work on catalyst design, supported catalyst for iridium supported catalyst. So for that support, I use some semiconductor material. So that's why I can make a lot of
So I'm Peter Kraus. I'll have the pleasure to give a talk tomorrow. I'm the associate professor of physics at the Free University of Amsterdam, and I work at a research institute where we actually collaborate a lot with a company from the Netherlands. It's called ASML. And they're the guys that build the big machine that Eric will show it. The biggest machine in every semiconductor fab. It's a property tool. So I'll tell you a bit about that and also the quality patterns.
Hi everyone, I am McQueen. I'm a first year PhD student at University of Delaware. My department is EC department. Our group mainly works on silicon-based photonic devices. I actually came here because I believe that there will be like a new and wide bandgap materials. So from silicon, we want to explore some other materials in our photonic devices. That's why I came.
Hi everyone, I'm Tyrel. I'm from the Museum of City. So my research is focused on wide bank calculated semiconductors for nonlinear. So I came here to learn something different.
I'm Jeremy. I'm from the University of Arizona, and my research is very much on the more fundamental side of things. So I'm here to learn more about how you actually turn these things into actual devices.
I'm a PhD student at Auburn University, and I am looking at two-dimensional heterostructure. And I came here to broaden my understanding.
I'm Tyrel. I'm a research student at MIT working on dielectric computing materials. So I'm interested to understand how these methods can fit into existing transport.
I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate at university, and my research is focused on both growth methods, both flux growth methods, ultra-wideband gas semiconductors. And I'm here at PARADIM this week to just learn more about the ways to make big crystals.
Yep. 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 Just next, I believe, in fact. Okay. So of course, with the team building title, you sort of have to wonder a little bit about, well, okay, but you already know some of this, right? Almost all of you, probably all of you have been on at least one or more team, right? As a group or something at some point in your lives. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay. And so of course you already know some of this. So the first question is, and I'm going to start collecting ideas on the board over here, is, why do we team at all? Why not just do it all yourself? Why do we team at all? Learn something different from others. Okay. What else? Okay. Can't do everything. What else? What other reasons do we team? Okay, reduce individual effort. Okay. What else? Huh? You can specialize. What else? So collaboration. So that's somewhat related to the specialization, but yep, collaboration between fields. What else? Time efficiency. Okay. So even if you could do it all yourself, the idea is maybe working as a team, you can do it faster. Okay. What else? Yeah. More eyes on the problem, so more ideas. More eyes. Not just more ideas, but also more catching of mistakes. Okay. What else? Yeah, Esther. So different approaches. So yeah, different people have different approaches. So complementary approaches. What else? More fun. Excellent. Okay. So, so to leverage the specialization and synergies. So this idea that you're greater than the sum of your parts. So efficiency gain. Yeah. Okay. So let's just put this in the context of chips. So you saw, in Dr. Lin's talk, like a modern semiconductor chip could have 100 billion transistors, right? Do you think any one person knows what all 100 billion transistors are actually doing? And they know what every single one is doing? No. Do you think 10 people know what all 100 billion transistors are doing? You think a team of 100 probably know what everything is doing when you combine their collective knowledge? Yeah, that's of that scale, right? What is that that's on here? Is to do things that no one person could possibly do, right? To do things of larger complexity than would be possible individually. That's really what I was getting at. And of course, I mean, this is not, of course, restricted to chips, right? I mean, go look at Hoover Dam or something, right? I mean, this is anyone else have anything else to add to that, or do we think that pretty much those are all good ideas? So of course, you've all been on teams before, though. I'm just curious, poll of hands real quick. How many of you have been on a team of 5 or fewer? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you have been on a team of 100 or more? Yeah. You're thinking maybe, because yeah, maybe. Okay. Yeah. So the question, so maybe small teams work a little bit differently than large teams, right? And maybe organizational structure is sort of important. So now here's a question. How many of you have been on a team that has failed, or in other words, not accomplished its objectives before? I'm gonna raise my hand. Yeah, right. So, of course, many teams, even when all the individuals are highly talented, absolutely fail. So maybe we want to think a little bit about why. And so I guess I have a first provocative question for all of you. Should avoiding team failure be a goal? So think about the cases you've had where teams have failed. Was that a bad outcome, or was that actually a good outcome? Anyone have any thoughts on this? Huh? So a failure can be an intermediary result. So maybe taking failure as an indicator that that's not the right approach, maybe, possibly, or it's the wrong set of expertise or something, maybe. I don't know. Okay.
Ideas are documented, or work is documented.
Uh-huh. Okay. So maybe this isn't the goal. Maybe the goal is to make sure one is generating results. And if failure turns out to be a result, well, so be it. Is that the argument? What do other people think? Sometimes this is a contentious comment. Okay. 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 So again, so a team should be willing to accept failure because it allows you to generate new knowledge. Okay. Other thoughts on this? Yeah. Yes. I was not very specific. I was not specific at all, was I? So you're saying, okay, should avoiding team failure be a goal? You're saying, well, a team might fail in terms of how people are interacting, but might still succeed in the individuals, or succeed for what the team was stood up to do. Okay. What do other people think? I mean, think about all the failures you've had. You've all seen some of these experiences, right? Okay. So if we're going to avoid failure, or we're going to try to learn from our failures, how do we go about doing that? Okay. And so we're going to run an experiment. So this is the fun part. So all of you know which group you're assigned to. So go ahead and split up into your team groups in little sets here around the table. And I'm going to come around and set out some materials for you. And if you don't remember, Sasha can tell you in a minute, but huh? Yeah, so the sheets here actually show you. So if you guys need to know what team you're on, team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4, and I actually have stuff for a 5th team if someone else wants to participate, but this should be entertaining. It's better. Yes, Astrid, you can join any team. Let's see which team has fewer. Absolutely. Already did that. Oh boy. You can see where this is going already, right? It's who's team 3? You two are team 3, and you're team 3 as well. Okay.
I think the other guy was sitting there.
You guys are team 2. Okay. All right. Yep. Okay, so all of you are sort of divvied up into your team. You all introduced yourselves already to the group, but spend 30 seconds introducing yourselves a little bit more to each other, just so that you know each other's names in a little bit more detail, and then I'll give you the activity. So go ahead, introduce.
I'm a student at MIT, working on.
It's right over there. Okay, so what are we going to do? So you see a pair of chopsticks, 6 cups, a pad of paper, some pens, and a piece of cloth, which we're going to use as a blindfold. But we're going to do this in 2 steps. So step 1 is touching the cups only with chopsticks. You're going to try to build the tallest tower possible in the least time. You now have 2 minutes to do that. Start now. Go for it.
Oh, I see. Oh, that was.
Not clever. And chopsticks down. Chopsticks down. Excellent. Okay. So how did that go? How did that go? So what kind of things were you, so I just threw you into the deep end there, right? So what kind of things were you having to decide early on? Who was good at chopsticks? What else were you having to decide? The structure, like, well, how are you going to stack the cups? I didn't tell you anything about how to stack them, right? You just were given 6 cups and told make a high tower. What else? What else did you have?
Logic of how you can separate one cup with another.
How to separate the cups from each other using just the chopsticks, which was a non-trivial thing to do, indeed. You know, what else did, and so how did you find your team dynamics work? Was everyone sort of involved, or was it sort of, you know, one person took charge? You know, I saw a mix of both actually in watching you all. Okay, so we're going to practice this one more time before we get to the real exercise. So go ahead and put all 6 cups just face down or face up, your choice, on the table. You can separate them. You don't have to put them together anymore. You can have them separate if you want. And now we're going to see who can build a tower that's at least 3 cups high as fast as possible. Okay? Using just the chopsticks, of course. Okay. So let's see who can do this the fastest. Everyone ready? Ready, set, go. And we have a winner. 13 seconds, 14 seconds, 13 seconds, 14 seconds, 18 seconds, and 21 seconds. Okay, very good. All right. All right. Give yourself a pat on the back. Now for the real exercise. Okay. Here are now the so think about what you just did. Now put them all back on the table again in whatever order you hit. But this time we're going to repeat this exercise with conditions. I'm going to simulate not all of you having the same expertises, okay? And not all of you having the same roles, okay? And so in particular, one person gets to hold the chopsticks and they have to be blindfolded. So pick who's going to use the chopsticks and put the blindfold on, okay? Second is the person who is blindfolded receives verbal instructions from a second member of the team, okay? But that second member of the team has to face the other direction, so you don't see how the structure is going or what the person's doing, okay? Then the other members of your team can be observers. And as observers, you're able to relay observations to the person who's allowed to speak using the pen and paper, but you're not allowed to speak yourself. Make sense? All right, pick who's going to get the blindfold on, get all set up, and then we're going to see how this goes. Unfortunately, I don't have so many pairs, but I did not anticipate the breaking apart to make multiple units. Whoever's going to use the chopstick blindfold.
Maybe I should be on one end.
And so as you're getting ready here, just to be clear, only one person gets to use the chopsticks and they're blindfolded. You can have one or two people giving verbal instructions, but if you're giving verbal instructions, you have to face the other way so you don't see the structure as it's being built. And then the third person, and then you can have as many people as you want relaying the observations with the paper. Okay? So, obviously, I know who's blindfolded here. Who's going to be able to give verbal? Okay, so then go ahead and turn your chair the other way. Who's going to give the messages?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and turn your chair the other way so you can't see what's going on. We're all set up. And yeah, you don't get to see what's going on. All right, everyone all set up and ready to go? Now, I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to build a structure that is three cups tall. Okay? Everyone ready? Ready, set, go. Okay. 2.5 minutes. You did it. 2.5 minutes. You can take your blindfold off. You did it.
Yeah, I need to. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're on the. Yeah. Okay. So these are really go to the little now. We're not. All right, how am I supposed to do this? What are you trying to do? Point to the, Oh, just the that on the very top. Okay. Oh, go for the reset? Okay. I just put the thing down. So, okay. I just got 3 more minutes. No, good. Okay. Am I good? Okay. Okay. Grabbing again. So, okay. All right. Help me out. Word me a bit. Move it a little bit towards. Okay, move it a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah. More. Good. Let go. And letting go.
Okay, time's up. You guys did it just in time. Okay, all right, blindfolds off. You guys can look. So, was that an interesting exercise? All right. So that was actually quite good. 2 of the 4 teams did it in 5 minutes. 1 team did it in 2.5 minutes. The other team did it right at the 5-minute mark. And both the other teams, you got at least 1 level on. So you're at least on the way towards doing it. But that was a whole lot harder, wasn't it? Right? So what kinds of things made that a whole lot harder? Yeah, so it was really hard to communicate effectively but concisely. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. How to follow the instructions was not trivial. The time resolution of the instructions, in terms of the fact that the observer had to write something that then the person communicating to you could say, that there was a time lag there, right? What else made this particularly difficult? It's hard to understand the instructions, so that goes back to the communicating very concisely, right? Okay, what else? Huh? How to guide someone. So just the how to describe how to move, right? That wasn't necessarily clear. What, so having a common language to describe the motion. Yeah, I mean, we all are speaking English, and yet somehow it's still non-trivial to tell someone what to do, right? Okay. So what else? Well, maybe we'll leave it there for now. We'll get to more in just a second. So I have a few other questions. So first is, how did your team choose the design? So how did you decide to do the 3-2? I mean, you all decided to initially do 3-2-1, although in this particular case, you guys moved left to a different option based on the fly decision making, which is great. But how did you arrive at that design? Was it sort of like one person decided it? Did you decide it as a group? Were you just randomly trying it? Were you, how did you get at maybe we'll have each team just say. Okay.
I mean, we were trying to go for the 3-1 set, but that was what we did initially.
Okay.
So for our work, we were doing roots in the chopsticks, blindfold. It was Michael, and then Radha is from same university. I thought you would make more verbal communication.
Because they know each other, so they already have some established norms of conversation.
We tried one by one, and then I think she finally decided, okay.
Okay. Yeah. And we already talked a little bit about communication, right? But I think all of the teams, you all found that the communication was by far the hardest part of actually getting that to execute, right? You know, and by communicate, it's not just the obviously you were all able to communicate with each other, but it was the details. It's communicating useful information was in fact the challenge, right? Okay. Other thoughts on this exercise before I say a little bit more about things? Okay. So, of course, it is well known that teams have a lot of hidden challenges. Okay. And you encountered one of those hidden challenges today, which has at least one of those hidden challenges today, which is just this question of, you know, how do we communicate the knowledge that we need to communicate in an effective manner? And this leads to time delays, right? Because now it's passing through multiple people. That results in time delays, right? So some of the challenges that come up with teams is the assumption of commonality or common knowledge, right? So, you know, in the case of the chopsticks examples here, right, it's, you know, how you grip the chopsticks. You had different choices of how to grip the chopsticks, right? And it wasn't, you had to sort of decide up front, when I say grab the chopsticks, you know, what do I mean, right? Or included in the instructions. So it can be difficult. Teams can have a lot of difficulty because even if every member of the team is great, they may not have shared experiences that give them shared expectations of what to expect, right? Or just shared knowledge. Information and goal asymmetry. So this didn't come up so much in the COPS experiment, but I'm sure you've seen this in other teams that you've been on, right? Does you know, teams are at the end of the day a collection of individuals, right? You know, and if the interests or goals of an individual are not necessarily aligned with the interests and goals of other people on the team or the team itself, then you can run into sources of friction, right? You know, work preferences and expectations, right? So, and this is clear this has always been true, but it's clear in spades as we work with, you know, teams from literally around the world, right? Where, you know, the sort of the norms and expectations of how much to work, when not to work, you know, how quickly should you respond to things? Should you respond in 20 minutes or should a response take a week, right? These are, and, you know, the point is that even within fields, right, there are different expectations for this for different individuals in different places. And of course, there can be status, power, and ego issues amongst the team, right? You know, sometimes there can be team members who maybe want to take all the credit and, you know, maybe they think they deservedly so, maybe not. But, you know, the point is, right, this is, of course, another common source of friction, as I think most of you know. Communication issues you saw was a big thing. Even if you all speak the same language, there's still the precise lingo related to communicating knowledge in the area the team is trying to work in. That is a non-trivial thing. And this is something that is very, very difficult to standardize. And so if you look at what most functional teams actually do, they have come up with a shared communication style in sort of an ad hoc way. And so new members to the team typically spend 2 months, 3 months, 6 months just learning that style before they're really integrated into the team. Okay. So that's a big one. Social loafing. This is the fancy term for basically, okay, I'm a member of the team, but I'm not going to actually do anything, right? Which goes back to the information and goal asymmetry, right? I mean, this is really sort of related to that, right? If I'm very invested in the team succeeding at whatever the team was stood up to do, then I might contribute a bit more than if I was just assigned to the team because I happen to be an expert in X, even if I have no interest in X, right? You also, I think, saw this in the CUPS exercise we just did, but it could oftentimes, right, teams end up with a larger time to decision, right? If it's just you get the request, you make a decision in your head and you return a response, right? And that process can be very, very fast, right? It can literally be you get the query and you respond in 30 seconds, right? But as soon as a team is making a decision, right? Most teams, that means you have to consult with your team, right? Unless it happens to be on a list of things that you've already agreed upon or is a particular way to answer it. You need to communicate with other members of the team. That communication takes time, and that communication time slows down the decision-making process. And that has real implications, right? Because it's not uncommon for teams to fail because they spend all their time waiting for each other to communicate rather than actually executing on the objectives the team was stood up for, right? So again, you're mostly familiar with all of those things. But now what I'm interested in is what are some strategies you've seen sort of effectively to address some of those challenges? So what sort of things help with those challenges? Anyone want to start chiming in? Yeah.
No, don't expect someone else to start.
So take initiative. So as a team member, you could help address these challenges by taking some initiative. Okay. Now, okay. What else? There should be a group leader, and you said they should be experienced. Okay. In the goal of the team, in the team objectives. Yeah. Okay. What else? Yeah. Take the time to formally establish group norms. What else?
One of those important probably is how much time to spend like on the team talking about like.
Okay. Okay. So including how the team talks about progress, including how the team shares information about progress. What else? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Availability. So what you mean is like agree upon when you're going to be available. So the team, so set expectations of when team members should be available. Is that what you meant? I just. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So setting the expectations of when work will get done. What else? Huh? Yeah. And then have a plan. So the team should have a plan with clear steps. With steps and tasks, right? And probably even task assignments. Right? What else?
Make this strategies to be more inclusive because students will not get different levels.
Yeah. To include all team members, even those with less experience, etc. Right? What else? Clear communication. So you really need very clear communication. So clear, constant communication. What else? Yeah.
Become familiar with each other so that we don't have.
Yeah. So get to know each other. as people rather than just as someone who has a particular expertise. Okay. What else? Well, so here's another one. Suppose I stand up a team to make a new semiconducting devices out of, rutile germanium oxide. Suppose I pick 10 people, all of whom do the synthesis, one person who does each of the other steps of the process. Is that team likely to succeed? Huh? Probably not. Why not? Unless somehow the synthesis is almost all the work, but it won't be. So in this example, but why will that team likely fail? There's redundancy, but redundancy can be good, right? It avoids what's called the bus problem. So you get run over by a bus, or if I get run over by a bus tomorrow, right? Can operations continue, right? So you want some redundancy, but too much redundancy, what is the problem that comes from that? Too many cooks in the kitchen. So avoid too many cooks in the kitchen. And in particular, what you're really saying is each team member needs to have a role, right? And those roles should be overlapping but distinct. Overlapping so that you avoid the bus number problem, you lose one team member because the plane crashed, the team doesn't fall apart. But distinct because so that each individual on the team has a thing that is theirs, that no one else on the, right? And that is theirs to champion. So that's a part of this. So making sure that teams have diversity and mix of expertise. What else? Yeah, so some redundancy is essential in teams, right? So if you have a small team developing a new product and as part of a startup, oftentimes startups really don't have redundancy. And if one person gets run over by a bus, that's quite literally the end of the project, the end of the startup, right? And so especially if you're trying to, develop the next GPU, the fact of the matter is, people die, things happen, right, in life. And so you want to make sure that you have some redundancy on teams to make sure that the team is resilient against the passage of any one individual on the team for whatever reason. And it's just not too much. But you're saying that a strength of some redundancy is the training aspect. Maybe that's a strategy to mitigate some of the issues that can come up because of overlap. If there is sort of a more experienced and a less experienced, and it's explicitly set up as a training, that the more experienced is training the less experienced, then that can help provide the redundancy while avoiding some of the complications. Yeah, so that's a good idea. What else? I need to give another examples of how teams fail. Well, think about your own experience. So going back to having a plan is really important for the team to have a plan for what to do, generally speaking, and know what your objectives are. Okay. Many teams that are successful, that's exactly what they have. But consider this. Suppose you as a team are given 6,000, a written document with all 6,000 individual steps you need to take in order to accomplish your goal. And you have no opportunity to come up with your own ideas of how to do things. You have no opportunity to deviate from the plan. Do you think that leads to buy-in amongst team members? In most cases, probably not, right? Right. So, and in fact, there are examples, right? There are some classic examples where that sort of led to mutinies, for lack of a better word, right? So, does anyone know what Skylab was a long time ago? It's like the first space station sent up by the US, right? A long time ago. Do you guys know there was a mutiny on Skylab? Where the astronauts there basically refused to talk to ground control and refused to do the things they were told to do? You guys know about this? Oh yeah, this is a great story. So I don't have the pictures in this slide deck. Yeah.
Each team member must be held accountable.
Each team member must be held accountable. I'll get back to that in just a second once I finish the Skylab story. So So yeah, so in the 1970s, you have Skylab, wonderful thing. Astronauts are set up with a large list of things to complete, right? And literally every minute of their day is scheduled, and their days are long, and their days are grueling. And essentially, what did the captain and the team members up in space end up deciding? This is too much. We're not going to do it. And so what did they do? They just told ground control, no. And what could ground control do to fix the situation? Yeah, well, the point is they could do precisely nothing to make the team members do the work, right? Other than to recognize what the concerns were, which had to do with the fact that there was no autonomy, that there was way too many hours per day being spent on doing X, Y, Z, and W, right? And to recognize that actually an important part of the functioning of a team is that ability for team members to be setting some of the goals, to be setting some of the objectives, to be setting the details, right? And to not be micromanaged, okay? But with that great power, which is an element that most successful teams have, also comes great responsibility, which is what the comment from online was alluding to, that team members also need to be held accountable, right? If you say you're going to do something, it needs to be done. So now I just think about all the teams you've been on. What are strategies that have been used to hold you accountable for doing things on a team? So there's certainly task management software where, a manager, whoever you report to, can look at and see, what tasks have you done or not done, and use that. And does that manager need to be a member of the team? No, they don't have to be, right? So management is different than the team, than the technical execution, but management is one way to provide accountability, right? What's another mechanism for a team to provide accountability? So having some overlap, which allows for resiliency, but it also means it allows for some people to not do what they said they were going to do. But then there needs to be some mechanism by which they are phased out of the team if they're not contributing for whatever reason. So that's part of the accountability. What else? How else have you been held accountable to teams before? So right. So rather than using sticks, which are the other two things we just talked about, one can use carrots, right? One can basically say, well, look, if you're going to be a part of this team and you want to be recognized as one of the people who helped invent the Apple Watch, for example, then you need to have contributed enough to the team to be recognized as such. And so, so now put yourself in the position of trying to actually define what that would look like. So you're absolutely right. It's really important to have an expectation of, you do a certain amount of stuff to be recognized as part of the team that did this. But now put yourself in the position of having to actually write that down concretely. What kind of challenges do you run into? Well, if you've written down all 6,000 individual steps, then, it's pretty easy to say, well, you need to have done 6 steps or this set of steps or whatever to be recognized. But then the team's not going to work because you've essentially micromanaged the whole thing. And this is the Skylab problem, right? So I'm sorry, Astrid. So what were you going to say? So training. So yeah, so certainly training can help. So this goes back to setting expectations, right? Part of setting expectations as well. Here's some training on what we're going to expect of you. We're expecting you to work, 3 12-hour shifts one week, 4 12-hour shifts the next week, and whatever. I don't know. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. I'm just. Yes.
Notice that, doing presentation results often show the
Yeah. So the sharing of results through formal presentations or by some mechanism, formal sharing of results provides accountability. Because how many of you want to have to give up and present to your peers and say, well, I did nothing? then this is the point, right? And so, and indeed, you certainly see this in an academic context where it's absolutely from a managerial perspective, one of the reasons to have group presentations on a regular basis is exactly to encourage some progress, because no one wants to get up and say, in flowery words, I did nothing, right? So another way to be accountable is just to actually communicate, to have expectations that everyone is going to communicate their progress on a regular basis, right? Okay, we're running out of time. So any other quick thoughts on this before we? Okay, so I was going to have you run the experiment one more time, but with randomized groups. But I think in the interest of time, we're going to stop here and have our break. If you want to go ahead and try it, by all means, go ahead and try it again. But for now, there should be refreshments out there. So let's pause there for 15 minutes before we keep going. So thank you.
Question about the post